Hi everyone, welcome. As we do sometimes, we're starting here at my computer on my spreadsheet just to show what I'm doing here. Sometimes I'll write down the information, other times we'll just come right here and take a look at it. The system that I've got lined up to work on are the ones that have this little bracket here, kind of like an open box where I can have an opportunity to put a checkbox or some sort of thing to put myself credit down for having gotten the work done. But that's my little indicator for things to be done, taken care of. And today it's these two red wiggler bins, and they were recently teamed up to sort of be a match set to be maintained at the same time together. One of them has kind of been dubbed the ping-pong bin, and then the other one was the one where we were composting twine and cotton. The twine, if it were still around, would be at about 177 days of age now, but we haven't seen any sign of that in quite some time. The cotton making nice progress, up at 167 days now. And last time, let's see, there were 10 days that had passed between feedings. This time it's only 9 days, but I think it's due for a quick check-in and some food. So let's head on down to the wormery and get that taken care of. We're starting here in the older of the two bins, the ping pong bin, if you will. It's let's see, what was it? We fed them with stuff like, they were all yellow things. There was a banana peel and there was a corn cob fed in each of these, and it was fed right here where the feeding zone indicator is. I can even see a little bit of a slope here, which would indicate a little bit of consumption of the stuff that made up this side of the bin here. So let's see, in here we were just kind of transplanting these two novelty items, kind of following the feeding. That we took them out of the old feeding and put them in here with the current feeding. And the two novelty items, here's the other one. There's a cork and a pumpkin stem. And we'll just keep them with the most current feeding over on this side. And, well, I'm always curious to see how the previous feeding did. I would think that a banana peel would still have some leftovers, as would a corn cob. Oh, I already sensed the corn cob. There it is. Usually the inner portions of it are what the worms manage to burrow out the quickest. It must be the softest of the material that this stuff is made up out of. You could see them getting in and out of this thing, somehow burrowing into it. If I look carefully, if I just look very quickly, I don't even notice it, but if I look carefully, I could definitely see wormies right down in there. Look at them all. Wow. And then you see all these castings within all the spots where there had been a kernel. So it seems to be a hot spot, but it is tough material, so it takes the worms a little bit to get through it. The only other stuff I'm finding, oh, here's another one, right? I would assume more of the same. Yeah, lots of wormies getting down into this thing. I'm surprised, I never really noticed how many. I'd imagine the banana peel would have a similar reaction if we're even able to find it. I mean, usually you would find at least the stem of it, and I believe that's what I found right here. It's definitely the stem of a banana, and it's not so heavily broken down that I would think it's any more than the 9 days old that it is. And I kind of almost thought I'd see more worms just hanging out in this stuff here. Or maybe I just gave them all enough time to squirm away. I scared them off. Man, there's so much bedding in there. And it seems like without any food in there to keep the worms going at it, it's just going to look the way it does. It's going to look barren. I don't know. I don't know. What do we do? I mean, we've been trying to keep to just leaving it, and then if the leftovers that there were over there were just these two corn cobs, then we would just permit them the continued time to keep making progress at being broken down. So why would we want to change our format today? We'll leave the previous feeding more or less intact the way we found it and cover it back up. That's the way the game is played, right? It just doesn't seem like it's going to be a terribly popular spot. It just seems like, there's no worms there now. Why would they go over there? Kind of makes me wonder, where are the worms? This is, after all, the system that did have the cardboard covering. The other system that we're going to be checking in on, the one with the fabric and the twine, or we used to have the twine, that has no coverings at all. So I'm starting to wonder if it might be time to start preserving what moisture's in these systems. I got to admit, once I go down a little bit, it feels quite nice. There's no problem there at all. It even makes me kind of wonder, look at all these worms right here on the perimeter of where the new bedding had been put in. I wonder, maybe it just seems like it's taking them some time to allow the stuff to break in a little bit, enough that they could just move into it. Maybe that's what's happening here. Huh, so many right there on the edge. I don't know. What do you think? Would we be cheating if we were to just give this side a little bit of food too today, rather than only the side that we're switching to? Since it's ping pong and back and forth, we're only supposed to feed the new side. But with all this bedding here, and with worms just itching to get into it, or back into it, or whatever the case may be, it seems like it would be silly not to try to help them a little bit, right? I mean, we covered up pretty good, so there's a lot of castings that fell into here, but for the most part, underneath all these castings, I think what we really have there is just a bunch of bedding. So I'm thinking, what if we just sprinkle in a little bit of our worm chow down into here? And just for good measure, I got my spray bottle here. I thought, like, maybe just a little bit of moisture over there wouldn't hurt either. And that should get the wormies going. At least we're able to retrieve the things that we want to keep with the most current feeding. We'll bring those over to the other side when we feed the cotton side today. And then these corn cobs and whatever's left of that banana peel, that stem there, can just continue down on this side. And if all that bedding starts to break in nicely, I've got a feeling the worms are going to appreciate having it there, and they're going to move in and take advantage of it. So it's all good. Very nice. The moisture I don't think hurts, and having a cardboard covering on this system is probably also beneficial. Kind of makes me wonder if the other system might also benefit from a similar covering of some sort, since it's just completely uncovered. So let's make sure we got these little extra bits that we're going to include with the feeding. This is what they're getting. We've got a new coffee filter here too that we can include with the feeding after we dump the coffee out of it. And that new coffee filter can replace this old one as feeding zone indicator. I got some other stuff here on the sidelines, some grit, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get this other side opened up and get the feeding in here. Now I believe the feeding that came prior, that was evidently that was also furnished with a lot of bedding material, which clearly the worms are very much enjoying. There's been no food put into this side for quite some time now. What was it? We went back 9 days, and then previously it had been 10 days, so we're well over 2.5 weeks, close to 3 weeks at this point since this side of the bin was fed. And I think it was cantaloupe rinds. So I think we might actually bump into some cantaloupe rinds. That's what this might be here. Yep, that's what that is. And the rest of it is paper. So that's some pretty nice stuff to find here as leftovers. The material, not bad. Moisture level seems to be pretty good. The worms don't seem to mind it. I'm just wondering if the addition of a little extra moisture might not hurt when we reset this feeding area. I've got some of my prepared bedding we could include with this setup too. I really have no problem expanding the size of this feeding area a bit, even though the system's kind of at that age already, and it's already received as many feedings as I would normally consider as kind of the cutoff point. I think it was 18th feeding last time. This might be its 19th. And you know, people might be saying, well, when are you going to harvest all those beautiful castings? When are you going to start bringing an end to these systems? Well, I was even thinking, like, you know, since these have been kind of the back and forth systems, I've been thinking maybe at some point we would just go with the most recently fed side and just keep going that way. And you know, if need be, fetching the 2 corn cobs from the other side, or whatever leftover bedding's there, or, you know, whatever it takes to, you know, get the movement of the worms. In fact, you know, that might be a good way to handle today's feeding. Maybe we treat that other side with all that bedding that was left over in there, as well as those 2 corn cobs, as the feeding that we'll go back to next time, and then from that point on we'll start just wedging the system over. Then this side will be the side left to sort of dry a little bit, and for the worms to forage through it and break it all down. But at that point, we would want it to be all nice finished castings and free of stuff that would keep the worms from wanting to stay in it. So I'm thinking maybe a good way to approach the feeding is to limit the amount of bedding we put in today. There's plenty on the other side if they need it, and maybe we just use what's left over as far as bedding for today's feeding. I mean, we can certainly incorporate this old piece of coffee filter, since we do have a new one coming in with which we can mark our feeding area. But as far as more bedding to add in here, maybe we don't need to add any more than this. All right, here we've got cucumber peel, we've got carrot peel, we've got some other sort of veggie peel here too. Let's leave some of this for the other bin and then grab some of this too, because I don't think any of this made it into this bin. It's got some nice vivid colors. Seems like a pretty good portion too, so why don't we leave it at that. That'll be their feeding. I mean, we could even beef it up with a little bit of chow for this side too. And moisture-wise, I don't think we need to worry, because I got a feeling all these peels, as they thaw, they're going to all emit a little bit of moisture over time. And I'm also thinking, what the heck, why don't we just sprinkle in a little bit more chow, just so there's a good abundant amount of food over on this side for them to nibble on when they come over. Looks like there's a whole bunch of stuff here too that we could have returned into this side here. Is there any more of it? Oh, I forgot the coffee too. Jeez. I'm almost finished covering up our feeding area and I've not even included half the food. Alright, let's get that in there too. And I think, as most people know, whenever I put the coffee in, to me that seems like a good excuse to sprinkle something else in there so it doesn't end up just being coffee. And sometimes I'll add more bedding, but I think in this case we'll just add more worm chow. What do you think? That looks like a pretty good feeding, if you ask me. These wormies should really appreciate it. Not a lot of fresh bedding. If they need some sort of carbon to supplement their food, keep a balanced diet, the other side's got plenty of it. So I think we're in good shape here. So let's take our brand new feeding zone indicator, place it over the spot where we last fed, and bring back our nice cardboard covering. I wonder if the other system would benefit from having one. I think this system's definitely benefiting from having one in terms of hanging on to its moisture quite nicely. Let's see how the other bin's doing. I usually put a fairly high degree of confidence into the casting material as having its ability to hang on to its moisture and not lose it to evaporation. I think we've got a pretty good setup here. Even though the top surface is dry naturally, with no coverings to protect it, it doesn't feel terribly dry, and it feels like just below the surface we've got ourselves some nice soft damp materials. Why don't we take a quick peek now, really quick. Where do we remove the feeding zone indicator from? Well, at this point it should be easy enough, because we've decided to keep the cotton. Now that the twine is all gone, we've decided to keep the cotton bits with the most recent feeding. So what do we got here? Corn. That would have been the last feeding, and right below the corn would be a piece of fabric. So that's where we fed last. Let's check over there first, then we could open up the other side and apply today's feeding. And like we've been doing, we're sticking to the back and forth theme, but since there was no more twine, we just figured let's just, sort of like the novelty items in the other bin, let's just keep moving the socks and the beach towel with the most current feeding. Although, last time we were in here, one part of the sock, the part that had the elastic in it, seemed like it was really, really far gone and almost completely gone. This is the other end of it. This is the part that goes over your foot, and the part that has the elastic that goes around your calf was the part that was really getting consumed quickly. And here's the corn that this system got. Guess there'd be another hunk of it over here somewhere. Lots of bedding here as well. And more worms really enjoying the corn cob. Awesome. Alright, so I'm really curious to see how those pieces with the elastic in them are doing, because these two pieces that go down around your foot clearly getting worn away by the worm action. There are even worms hanging out right inside the sock, which is pretty neat. How do you like that? They're just all over this thing, nibbling their way through it. Do we have the same deal going on inside the other one? Where's the opening? Making my hands dirty. As long as I keep one clean finger to be able to shut the camera off, that's good. But now where's the elastic pieces? That's what I'm wondering about. Alright, here's some leftover bits of the elastic right there. Ooh, lots of worms hanging out. Lots of leftovers here too. Now, of the elastic parts, there we go. We definitely saw that cuff part on the very top was remaining as leftovers. Almost entirely intact, hardly weathered at all, but all the rest of the part of it that goes around your calf has been reduced to only this little jumble of the elastic stuff. It seems like they've eaten all the cotton. Kind of makes me wonder what this other part of it is really made of. It makes me wonder what made me cut them in half. It just felt to me like somehow they'd break down at different rates, and I guess I was right. Man, look at all this bedding over here. I'm wondering if this might be a good way to go. Kind of just grab the cotton items and just leave the corn behind. Maybe dampen things down here a bit just to make sure the interest remains high. And then we could move on to feeding and switching to the other side. Man, look at all this stuff. So much bedding in here. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. So yeah, let's just, I guess, you know, last time too we had no luck locating any of the towel that had been put into these systems. Kind of like the twine, the towel that was put on the cotton side here seems to have all gone because we found no trace of it last time we were in here. Did we find both of these elastic cuffs? Yeah, we did. I really thought there'd be more, like a bigger jumble of elastic stuff down here. We'll eventually find that someday if it's still intact, if it remains intact and doesn't get eaten. So the besides the recycled cotton that's going to just follow the feeding now, we can also recycle this, the old feeding zone indicator, because we got that nice new replacement we could throw in here. And here's 2 feedings ago. So the old corn cob here too. I don't think I saw a banana stem, but I would imagine that was probably in there too. I just didn't really look that thoroughly. Here too we've got leftovers of the feeding that goes back 2 feedings ago. It was the cantaloupe rinds. Here too, it looks like we're pretty generous on the bedding. I tell you, if we're gonna decide to migrate, start into sort of a wedge pattern in one of these or both of these systems, I think one of the first things to do would be to collect up all this supplemental bedding that's floating around everywhere. Or who knows, maybe the stuff will just start vanishing once we start feeding them and maybe not giving them more to work on. For whatever reason, I don't know why, in this system I just don't feel like we need to supplement the moisture. Even though it's been left uncovered, it somehow feels like it might even have a little bit more moisture than the other systems got. That's just sort of my gut feeling here. I don't know why, so that's the reason I didn't pull the water bottle out for doing this system over here. I am kind of liking the idea, though, of maybe not adding more bedding. There was so much on the other side. Well, there's plenty here, too, that we can sort of salvage out of this pile that we had taken apart here. I'm just kind of feeling like it might be a good idea to let this existing bedding ride a little bit and maybe just go simple on what we're feeding them. I mean, we could certainly, like we did before, give them the Old feeding zone indicator. That's a pretty nice big hunk of paper there. So that's new. And here's the test bedding material. Oops. See, I was expecting another little jumbled up hunk of this stuff. Oh wait, is that what I got here? Yeah, I do. Okay, good. For some reason I thought that was sort of missing. And then the two pieces that still seem like they've got a ways to go, but I could be just misinterpreting what I'm looking at here. And then I know here and there there's still a bunch of other scattered bits of stuff, which would be ideally left down near the food, not out near the surface where things are going to dry. And they won't even dry that much, it seems, because this bin really appears to have a really good ability to resist evaporation and loss of moisture. So to get this feeding in here, nothing too fancy, just drop it in. Actually, you know what? The other system didn't get any grip, but I think since we've got somewhat more challenging material for the wormies to work down, this cotton, maybe we'll put some in here. And just to make the cotton that much more interesting for them to come hang out in, throw a nice little dose of this worm chow in here too. How does that look? Yum yum. Look at all these delicious chopped up pieces of carrot. There's even a bunch of olives in here that I picked off the frozen pizza I had the other night. Very yummy foods. All right. You know what? Can't resist. Let's just give them a little bit more. All right. Oh, and here I go again. Always forgetting that the coffee, when I add it, is also going to trigger the need for something to mix in with it. How does that look? All right, that's our feeding today, I believe, for our two back and forth systems. And the cotton's really doing so good. It's such a cool feeling when you start actually seeing progress, because, you know, in the very beginning it takes so long for anything to start happening at all. You see virtually nothing happening actually. And then all of a sudden you start sensing how things are getting much more thin, and then things start just breaking apart. And I gotta tell you, when I had no luck finding the beach towel in here, that really put a smile on my face too, I gotta say. So, I don't know, do you agree? Keeping this thing uncovered the way we had it? Okay, I think it is. So we'll stick with it because it's worked well till now. The other system also seems to be working quite nicely with its covering, so even though they're paired up, these two systems, I'm not trying to gravitate towards, you know, deal with them in identical ways. I'm just giving each one whatever I think it needs and going with it that way. So that's it for the video. I got a few things I've got to put away and clean up, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. Before I go, let me really quickly just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always very much appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.